They say living well is the best revenge. I say that's a good start. A lovely little appetizer maybe, before the main course. But have you ever made a man so infamous in his own town that he has to sell his business, his home, and move 2 states away just to buy a cup of coffee without whispers following him out the door? I have. And it all started the day I found a receipt for a hotel room I'd never stayed in. For a night, I thought he was sleeping right next to me. Our life, it wasn't just good, it was meticulously curated perfection. We were Mark and Elena, the couple everyone called goals. 10 years of marriage, a sprawling custom-built home, and a business we poured our blood, sweat, and my inheritance into. Sterling Solutions, he called it. A tech consultancy that had become the darling of our mid-sized city. Mark was the face-charming, handsome, a master of the handshake and that reassuring smile. I was the engine, the strategist, the one managing the finances and operations, the quiet scaffolding holding his brilliant facade aloft. I loved him with a completeness that, looking back, was terrifyingly naive. I loved the way he'd bring me coffee in the morning, the exact shade of blue his eyes turned when he got excited about a new project, the familiar weight of his arm around me as we fell asleep. Our life was this beautiful, predictable rhythm. We hosted charity fundraisers, our names etched onto plaques and hospital wings. He was even on the cusp of receiving the city's Entrepreneur of the Year award, a moment he'd been chasing for a decade. It was supposed to be the peak of everything we'd built together. Our friends were his friends, our world was his world. And right at the center of that world was Chloe, my best friend since college. She was the one I called after a fight with my mother, and the one who helped me pick my wedding dress, the godmother to a child we never had, when she needed a job after a bad breakup a few years back. I'm the one who convinced a reluctant Mark to create a position for her at Sterling Solutions, head of client relations, we called it. She was family. Her presence was as constant and unquestioned as the air I breathed. The trust I had in him, in them, was absolute. It was the foundation of my entire world. And when your foundation is that solid, you never think to check for cracks. You don't look for trouble because the very idea of it feels alien. A late night at the office was just a late night. His sudden need for more privacy on his phone was just him trying to declutter his digital life. I accepted it all because not accepting it would mean admitting the masterpiece of my life was a cheap forgery. I was the frog in the slowly boiling water, completely unaware of the inferno about to consume me. It didn't start with a bang. It was a slow, sickening leak. It started with a dry cleaning receipt. I was just putting the ticket in our little kitchen tray when I saw it, tucked inside the plastic sleeve. A folded receipt from the Grand Huron, the most expensive boutique hotel in the city. It was dated for a Tuesday night 2 weeks ago. A night he was supposedly pulling an all-nighter at the office. I remember staring at the charge for the romance package. Champagne, roses, late checkout. My first thought, strangely, was that he was planning a surprise for me. But a cold little knot was already forming in my stomach. I'd called him that night around midnight, and he'd sounded exhausted. Said he was sleeping on the office couch. No mention of a hotel. I tried to push it away. There had to be a logical explanation. There just had to be. The next few days were a quiet personal hell. I became a ghost in my own home, just watching him, replaying every conversation, every touch, searching for the lie. He was more affectionate than ever, which suddenly felt suffocating. He'd kiss my forehead and tell me he couldn't have done any of this without me. All I could see was that receipt, burning a hole in my mind. The real discovery came a week later. He was in the shower, and his work phone, the one he guarded like a dragon, was on the nightstand. It buzzed, then buzzed again. It was usually locked down tighter than Fort Knox, but for a split second, the screen lit up with a preview. A message from SI. What the message said is what shattered me. Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. He has no idea, does he? See, My blood ran cold. Chloe. The world tilted. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. With a surge of adrenaline, I did something I never thought I could. I grabbed the phone, my heart hammering against my ribs, and walked into my home office, locking the door. I knew his password. Our dog's name and the year we got him. The sheer, insulting arrogance of it. I opened the messages. It wasn't just an affair. It was a whole other life. Hundreds of texts, photos, videos. They had been together for almost 2 years. 2 years of my best friend and my husband laughing at me behind my back. They had nicknames for me. The Warden, the ATM. They mocked my clothes, my laugh, the way I organized the pantry. They detailed their hookups in our bed while I was away visiting my parents. They talked about their future, a future built on the ashes of our company, the one my money had started. There was a message from Mark to Chloe, just a little longer. Once I get the award and secure the new line of credit, we can phase her out. She'll get a decent settlement, but we'll have the company. Phase me out. Like I was an obsolete piece of software. I sat there on the floor of my office for what felt like an hour. I didn't cry. The pain was too deep for tears. It was a hollow, echoing cavern in my chest. This wasn't just about sex. It was about everything. My friendship, my marriage, my business, my identity. They hadn't just cheated. They were actively plotting the demolition of my life while smiling to my face. The love I felt for him didn't just die. It curdled into something toxic and black. And in that moment, a new feeling began to bloom in the wasteland of my heart. It was cold. It was sharp. It was rage. And it was the most clarifying feeling I'd ever had. A quiet divorce wasn't enough. They had orchestrated a slow, secret humiliation for me. I decided mine for them would be sudden, spectacular, and very, very public. First thing I did, called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but the most ruthless divorce attorney in the state. A woman named Diana Sterling, whose reputation for dismantling cheating husbands was legendary. I walked into her office the next day, not as a weeping victim, but as a CEO presenting a business proposal. I laid out the situation, the evidence, and my objective. I didn't just want to win. I wanted to annihilate. Diana, a woman with ice water in her veins, listened intently. When I finished, she leaned back and said, "Most clients want a shoulder to cry on. You want a co-conspirator. I can work with this." And so, we made a plan. A meticulous, multi-phase operation. Phase 1. Information warfare. My shock was replaced by a chillingly clear focus. I wasn't a wife anymore. I was an intelligence agent in my own life. While Mark and Chloe thought I was blissfully ignorant, planning a surprise party for his big award, I was assembling an arsenal. I hired a private investigator who specialized in financial crimes. I told him to dig into everything: Mark, Chloe, the business. While he worked, I played the part of the devoted, supportive wife. I helped Mark practice his acceptance speech. I listened to Chloe complain over lunch about a difficult client, all the while knowing she'd spent the previous afternoon with my husband at the Grand Huron, on a company card I'd authorized. The ability to smile and hug her while picturing her downfall was a skill I never knew I possessed. It was terrifying and intoxicating. The PI's reports were a fresh layer of hell each week. Mark wasn't just cheating on me. He was robbing me. He had set up a shell corporation that builds sterling solutions for expert services. The sole proprietor? Chloe. He was siphoning hundreds of thousands of dollars from our company, my company, and funneling it right into her pocket. They were using it to fund their lifestyle, to buy her a condo, to take lavish trips he passed off to me as solo networking opportunities. He was using my inheritance to build a life with my best friend. That cold rage coalesced into a diamond-hard point of purpose. This was grand larceny. With Diana's guidance, I began phase 2, the financial decapitation. We quietly set up new bank accounts in my name only. Over the next few weeks, I systematically moved every liquid asset that was legally mine. I compiled a dossier, a thick, damning binder with bank statements, the PI's photos, and printouts of their texts. I made 3 copies, one for Diana, one for me, and one for the grand finale. The final piece of the plan was the most personal, the most theatrical. It was inspired by one of their texts. Chloe had sent him a photo of a diamond necklace. One day, she'd written, Mark had replied after the award, "I'll buy you the whole damn store." So, I decided to get her a gift. I went to a custom jeweler and had him craft 2 identical sterling silver pendants. Instead of a gemstone, I had a phrase engraved in delicate script. One read, "Homewrecker," the other, "Thief." I had them placed in a beautiful velvet box, ready for presentation. The stage was set. The venue, the mayor's grand ballroom. The event, the 10th annual Entrepreneur of the Year Gala. The guest of honor, my husband. He had a table for 10 right at the front. For me, for his parents, and of course for his star head of client relations, Chloe. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. The week before was surreal. Mark was on top of the world, radiating smug self-satisfaction. He talked endlessly about our success. Each word was a fresh twist of the knife in my back. But I just smiled, squeezed his hand, and told him how proud I was. I was an actress worthy of an Oscar. The woman who cried over a hotel receipt was gone. In her place was an architect of ruin, and I was just days away from the ribbon cutting. Justice needed an audience. The day of the gala arrived. I spent the afternoon at a spa. Massage, manicure, the works. I had my hair and makeup done professionally. The woman in the mirror was beautiful, serene, and her eyes held a glint of steel. I chose my dress with military precision, a stunning floor-length gown in deep crimson, the color of power, passion, and danger. In my small clutch, I had my lipstick, a USB drive, and the little velvet box. When I met Mark in our foyer, his jaw dropped. "Wow, Alina, you look incredible. Tonight is our night." "Yes, darling," I said, my voice smooth as silk. "It certainly is." The ballroom buzzed with tuxedos and glittering gowns. We took our seats at the front, his parents, beaming, a few key investors, and Chloe, seated directly across from me in a slinky silver dress. She gave me a warm hug. "Elena, you look like a movie star. I'm so excited for you guys." I smiled back, a genuine, radiant smile. "Thank you, Chloe. It means so much to have you share this with us." Our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of smug, triumphant pity in hers. She thought she was winning. She had no idea the game was already over. Dinner was endless. Speeches were made. Finally, the mayor stood at the podium, and so it is my great honor to present this year's Entrepreneur of the Year award to the founder and CEO of Sterling Solutions, Mr. Mark Sterling. The room erupted in applause. Mark stood, straightened his tie, and gave me a dry, performative kiss. "Wish me luck," he whispered. "You don't need it," I whispered back. "You deserve everything that's coming to you." He walked onto the stage, a portrait of success. He accepted the heavy crystal award and turned to the microphone, starting the speech I had helped him write. He thanked the city, his team, and then he turned his gaze to me. "But most of all," he said, his voice thick with practiced emotion, "I have to thank my rock, my partner in every sense of the word, my beautiful wife, Elena. Honey, none of this would have been possible without your unwavering belief in me, your support, and, well, your initial investment." He chuckled. That was my cue. As the applause swelled, I stood up and walked toward the stage with a deliberate, confident stride. Mark's smile faltered, confused. He thought I was coming up for a hug. I reached the podium and leaned into the microphone. "Don't worry, I said, my voice ringing out through the silent ballroom. I'm just so proud of my husband, I wanted to add a little something of my own. A tribute, if you will. Mark's face was a mask of confusion, but what could he do? He just smiled weakly. My husband is right, I began, my voice clear and strong. Partnership is everything, and a successful business is all about transparency. So in that spirit, I've prepared a short presentation to highlight some of his biggest assets. Before he could react, I turned to the AV Techa freelancer I'd paid handsomely in cash, gave him a nod, and plugged my USB drive into the laptop. The massive screen behind the stage flickered. The first image was a high-res screenshot of a text message. From Mark to Chloe, tired of pretending. Can't wait to get rid of the warden and have you on my arm for real. A collective gasp went through the room. Mark froze, his face turning a blotchy, horrified red. He reached for the laptop, but I put my hand on his chest. "Oh, don't worry, darling," I said into the mic, my voice dripping with sweetness. "The best part is coming." The slideshow continued. A photo of them kissing at the Grand Huron. A screenshot of the Shell Corporation's registration with Chloe's name. A flowchart showing a $250,000 transfer from Sterling Solutions to her company. Then came the receipts. A $5,000 handbag, a diamond bracelet, a down payment on her condo, all paid for by expert services she never rendered. The room was deathly silent. I let the last slide linger, then turned my attention to our table. Chloe's face was ashen, her mouth hanging open. I picked up the velvet box from the podium. And finally, I announced a special award for a very special partner. "Chloe, darling, could you stand up?" She was frozen. The spotlight operator, also on my payroll, found her and bathed her in an unforgiving beam of light. I walked down the steps and approached her. I opened the box. "Mark always said that after he got this award, he'd buy you the whole damn store," I said, my voice resonating with cold fury. But I thought something more personal was in order. I took out the first necklace and held it up for all to see. "A token of my appreciation for your contributions." I read the inscription aloud, "Homewrecker." Then I picked up the second one, "And this one is for your business acumen." I read the word thief. I didn't put them on her, I just dropped them on the table. They clattered against her bread plate, the sound echoing through the ballroom. I turned back to the stage, to my husband who was standing there, a paralyzed statue of humiliation. "By the way, Mark," I said into the microphone one last time, "while you were practicing your speech, I was on the phone with our bank. Our joint accounts? They're empty." And a full copy of this presentation was delivered to the IRS and the board members of Sterling Solutions about 30 minutes ago. "You did this," I said, gesturing to the award. "You just did it with my money and my trust. So, in a way, I guess this award is half mine." And with that, I put the microphone back on the stand. I turned, and without a single look back at the carnage, I walked out of that ballroom. The applause was long over. All that was left was the ringing silence of absolute devastation. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. "Gala of Ruin," one headline called it. Mark was fired, investigated for embezzlement, and became a social pariah overnight. Chloe vanished. Last I heard, Mark sold our beautiful home for a fraction of its value to cover legal fees and moved 2 states away. Mark sold our beautiful home for a fraction of its value to cover legal fees and move 2 states away. People still talk about it. They say it was the most brutal, perfectly executed takedown they had ever seen. What do you think? Was it too much? Or was it exactly what they deserved? Let me know in the comments. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. I think it's a dish best served publicly in a 5-star ballroom. With a slideshow and accessories. Did it heal the gaping wound of his betrayal overnight? No. But it was a damn good start. It gave me back the power they tried to steal. It replaced my victimhood with victory. The years that followed were about the real work. Healing, rebuilding, and rediscovering the woman I was before I was subsumed into Mark and Elena. I used the fortune I rightfully claimed to start a new life on my own terms. My life is full now, not with curated perfection, but with genuine joy. It's quiet, it's peaceful, and it's all mine. And while I don't regret a single glorious second of it, I've learned that the ultimate revenge wasn't the gala. It wasn't the humiliation or the financial ruin. The best revenge, it turns out, is a life lived brilliantly, a life he is no longer a part of. Living my best life isn't just a good start. It's the whole damn meal.